Thanks. Well, welcome everybody. It's another opportunity for us to have a conversation about Black history, and there's certainly some very interesting things going on at the moment. In this session here, we're going today, we're going to have hear about how Windruch Day was celebrated in 2022. And Hilary Robertson-Hicking, Dr. Hilary Robertson-Hicking is joining us from Jamaica, and she's reflecting on the recognition now given to Windruch Day and the Windruch generation. But we are going to ask her about a few other things because there's so many interesting things going on in the news at the moment. Now, I'm Liz Millman, I'm from Learning Linked International, and I'm actually based in Australia at the moment. So we recognise each week the pain and trauma that so many communities around our world are suffering, and wish to support the efforts and recognise the ongoing oppression of so many. And I also recognise the, which is the acknowledgement here. I acknowledge the traditional owners on the land on which I'm currently living. This is the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. I recognise their elders, past, present and future, because this land belongs to the sovereign people of the First Nations. It never ceded, it always was, and it always will be. So having done that acknowledgement of country, it's called here in Australia, recognise that we've got quite a lot of interesting things going on, and I'll catch you up with that another time. Now, last week we were honoured by Professor Sir Jeff Palmer joining us, and he was telling us a little bit about yet another milestone in Scotland, and that is a new national museum to confront Scotland's slave trade history. So one of the things we're first going to talk about when I've introduced Dr. Hilary Robertson-Hicking, one of the first things we're going to talk about is how this museum needs to invite Prince Charles, having heard Prince Charles speaking at the Commonwealth Conference or whatever it is going on in Rwanda at the moment. So I think that could be a good lead into that. So we have as our guest today, Dr. Hilary Robertson-Hicking, who's a former lecturer in human resource management at the University of the West Indies. She's done research in the UK and Jamaica on Caribbean migration and the experiences of Caribbean migrants overseas. Now, Dr. Hickling and her husband, Professor Fred Hickling, lived and studied in, I don't know if Fred studied in Birmingham, I think he worked in Birmingham, in England and in Palmerston North, New Zealand. So you're an author, White Squall on the Land, Narratives of Resilient Caribbean People, and That Time in Foreign, which originates from That Time in Foreign collection, which is housed in the UE archives. So it's great, Dr. Hilary Robertson-Hicking, to have you join us. It's your early morning, it's my late night, other people are halfway through the afternoon. We're all around the world, and we've also got a colleague with us, Bunmi Olisan from Canada, and a number of other colleagues from the UK. And this week has been a very exciting week because it's been Windruch Day, and we're going to hear about a range of activities that have been going on to recognise Windruch Day, and we're also wanting to hear about plans being considered for the 75th anniversary in 2023. So when we're looking at that, I'll come back to this slide because I've been looking to see if I could see June Elizabeth in that picture, but I can't. So right, here we are then. Okay, so Hilary, if you just put your name on, will you please?
Okay, you're hearing me?
I can hear you now. Oh yes, that's fine, I can hear you now. That's great. Okay. But if you put the thing by your ear, then we can't see your face. So we need to see your face. If not, put your name across, William. Can you put your name across?
I think that there are many things that have come together in a perfect storm. We have the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting at a time when we know that Britain is seeking to regroup after the Brexit fiasco. And one view is that there is an effort to try to use the royal family symbolically, as Britain has lost some of its allies in Europe. And so some fractured relationships or forgotten relationships with the former colonies are being reactivated. In fact, there's a controversy in Jamaica because after the visit of the royals recently, Jamaica suddenly decided it would no longer support Baroness Scotland. So they are having various speculations about the connection between the two. But of course, we will soon see how that one works out. So there's a fair amount of cloudiness and opaqueness, I think the word is.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that Barbados really has exploded the myth of Little England. And the leadership of Barbados, which is of course a different generation, a person in her 50s, etc., has shown that it's time to change. There are still pockets of support of the royal family across, I guess, the dominions, former dominions like Australia and Canada, and but also in countries like Jamaica. But increasingly, as people have grown weary, as we've had the impact of things like the Windruch debacle, there are people who are beginning to recognize that Britain has long turned its back on its former colonials. And it's very painful for many who have this nostalgia for the good old days. And perhaps I'd like to just bring to the attention of my colleagues to whom I'm listening and speaking. I think it would be very useful to reread some of the books written by people like George Lamming, who recently died at age 94, who wrote some books 70 years ago, In the Castle of My Skin and so on. He was at one time the roommate of Samuel Selvon, who wrote Lonely Londoners. And of course, there were other people of that era, but also to come fast forward to someone like Miss Levy, who died recently. I think she died in her 60s 2 years ago. Because I think the books provide us with a very interesting documentary on the entire experience from the 20th century into the 21st century. So I think I'd like to stop speaking at that point to get response.
Well, thank you very much indeed, Hilary, and it's great that you're joining us. You're joining us from Jamaica. Hilary, just put your name on, will you please? Because you're showing us a very attractive picture of your ear at the moment.
Should I turn on the what?
Just put your name on. Turn off your picture.
Okay, I will do that. Surely.
Thank you. Yeah, I know it's perhaps difficult to hear. I'm shouting from Australia, so you're doing well to hear me.
I'm hearing you well.
That's wonderful, thank you. Okay, so my point is, thank you very much indeed. I think that it'll be interesting for us all to get back on the news and see what's going on at the Commonwealth Heads of Government, and certainly Charles's presentation was interesting, that he thinks he needs to learn more. Well, he should be well informed. And the fact that the British government is using the royal family to try and reactivate links. And there are many questions to ask about the Commonwealth. So those are all points I'm sure people will come up with. We've got a point from Simon that we can share in a minute about the Drax family. But before that, I think it's interesting that you talk about three authors, George Lamming, who's passed now, sadly, and his book, Castle of My Skin, I think that's the right name for it. Also the Lonely Londoners, is that right? And Andrea Levy's two excellent books. And Andrea Levy recorded quite a lot of interviews and podcasts in the time before she also sadly passed. And they're available on the internet and they're really interesting. So yeah, well, thank you very much for that. So some responses from others. Bunmi, you had your hand up.
Yes, but you've raised most of what I wanted to say. What I just like to maybe add is maybe some for Dr. Robert Hickling to please throw some more light of what she meant when she talked about feelings of nostalgia and the fact that she thinks the Britain has now turned its back on its former colonies. I don't think there was ever a time when its back was not on its former colonies. I think it's just that the former colonies are a bit more assertive now, and it's having to struggle, with keeping its reputation up. Thank you.
Interesting. Yeah. What do you think, Hilary?
I think you're perfectly right. Because I wouldn't even describe it as a marriage of convenience. This relationship was consummated, but it was never admitted to. This relationship between Britain and the colonies, it's a sort of, let me call it a dirty secret. So there were benefits, but they could not be acknowledged. And and here's another interesting suggestion I want to make. It is now 70 years before a British publisher was willing to publish Eric Williams' masterful Capitalism and Slavery. I read this first as a teenager. And apparently he could not get it published in Britain where he had done his PhD. And in fact, it was apparently published initially by an American publisher. And so Eric Williams, who is to me one of the most brilliant historians and brilliant leaders, formerly, of course, of Trinidad and Tobago, his book could not be published in England. Apparently the publisher said it would have put Britain in a bad light. So you are perfectly correct about this this relationship between capitalism and slavery. Britain's rise, I guess, and fall as empires rise and fall because of the blood, sweat, and tears of the people of this particular region. So I agree with you completely. This nostalgia, which apparently is an illness, is sometimes ill-placed.
Interesting.
Thank you.
And Fred's work was fabulous. His work on the understanding our madness. I mean, he and you have really explored that. Ina?
Thank you. The illness is the Joy Degree named it as a post-slavery syndrome.
Yes, yes.
Go ahead. My
No,
memory
I know of it, but please go ahead. I'm listening.
No, go ahead, because the brain is so packed with information that I've got to search for it. It's post-traumatic slavery syndrome.
Syndrome,
Yeah.
yes.
Yes, and I saw it a lecture, and in her saying it's in our DNA, that we will, because of how our forefathers were treated, it will always be there. So we've got to make, Bob Marley says, get rid of the enslavement. We've got to go beyond that in order to spin around and think differently. Continuation of what you were discussing about the royal family. The Queen's legacy from her father was aware that the world was changing. And I think he made an effort after seeing his brother's behavior. And the Queen, when the Queen came on throne, I think the Prime Minister or the then government had a naive 20-plus-year-old that they could manipulate. They thought they could manipulate. But I think her father had prepared her somehow. So for me is that the education of us as a part of the Commonwealth started then when we were allowed to read more, to become more educated. And the Moyan report in the 47 or thereabout that highlighted the poverty in the Caribbean was the beginning of where we are today. Yes. So my thing is that it's the education. And Prince Charles' comment was that about his knowledge, and I'm thinking, yes, because you all had your head in the sand before, and you are now seeing the real world, yes, and how it's affecting you and the future. So that's my bit.
Well, thank you very much indeed. Thank you. And, you know, it is, where have you gone, Ina? You've switched yourself off.
Have I?
Oh, I can hear you now. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
June Elizabeth, Hilary made some quite profound comments then, and really interesting reflections. Is there anything that you want to come in with at the moment?
Well, no, I just was really just wanted her to carry on. So
Okay.
interesting. You know the gentleman Samuel, Hilary.
Who's got the kids in the background?
He has just come inside, but
Oh, it's all right,
but
Hilary.
he's going back outside. He's going back outside.
That's fine. That's fine. Yeah, it's okay.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Good evening. Good afternoon, Hilary. You know, you
Hi.
mentioned the books and
Yes.
The Lonely Londoners by somebody Samuel. Could you give me the full
Selvon,
name?
Samuel Selvon.
Samuel Selvon.
Yes, a Trinidadian.
Selvon. Okay, thank you very much. I'll ask my husband to get me a copy if it's still in print.
It should be.
Yes, thank you very much. I was just enjoying listening to you.
Thank you so much.
June Elizabeth, I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself to Hilary, because just before Hilary goes on, because you've got such important roles at the moment as a Jamaican Windruch ambassador. Just introduce yourself, will you, so that Hilary knows who you are. I can't hear you. I can't hear you.
Hi.
Oh,
Yeah.
take it off. Yeah, I was the first Northampton-born Jamaican heritage. My parents were the first Jamaicans to marry in Northampton in 1954. When they came, there were 5 black people. I'm an activist. I'm in that new book that's been launched as an activist. I'm a former nurse, qualified nurse, ex-police officer, and a semi-retired health counsellor. But I've been helping people from 1981 as a Windrush advocate when they changed the nationality bill. I just went to a meeting. I mean, I was born in England, and I suddenly found out that I wasn't a citizen. And from there, I went across the country and helped the elders complete their citizenship form. And couple of years ago, I was one of the 41 Home Office Windrush community ambassadors to promote the Windrush scheme and the Windrush compensation scheme. I saw the gaps in the service. So after my term was, well, it wasn't after it was done, during it, because we were only to signpost, I took on a caseload of clients. And to date, I've been 100% successful with my clients' status and compensation claims. And I'm been fortunate that I can call a meeting with the head of Home Office or the managers of Home Office. So I had a Jamaican gentleman, I'll close with this so you understand. I had a Jamaican gentleman, he came here when he was 11. And when he was 40, they told him he didn't belong here. And they offered him £40,000 in December, and I said it wasn't enough to him. And so instead of offering him 40, I met with the heads of the review, that's the The review team is the appeal team, but they changed the name to review. And I met with the head of the review team, and I met with the managers of the review team, and I'd asked the head of Home Office for the same calculator that they use to, you know, say how much a person should get as compensation. So they offered him another extra £30,000. So the head of Home Office, they said to me, the managers, and I've got a partner, Glenda Caesar, that they'd like to meet with us again. So we're meeting in 2 weeks' time, and we're bringing cases to highlight to them. So
So
that
it's
is
really
my role at the
fantastic
moment.
work you're doing, really fantastic. And Hilary, I thought you might find that helpful to know about that. And also just to say that I think this was sent to me, I can't recall, I think who it was, sent me this because sadly George Lamming has passed now, but as you say, Hilary, recommendation to read some of his work, and also Samuel Selvan, Lonely Londoners, and any of Andrea Levy's books. So I think that's really helpful. Okay, so Hilary, back over to you then, please.
Okay, thank you very much for that and for all that fantastic work you've been doing out of Northampton. I want to say two things. One, it is a good thing that we're all in different places, but all of them are connected, whether we're in Australia or Northampton or Kingston or Canada, because there is this shared history, which some people, of course, pretend is not shared. So this heads of government conference is really taking place where there is, I guess you have concepts like cognitive dissonance, where there people have a shared history but don't have a shared history. And that in itself creates a tremendous amount of confusion and conflict. Not to mention some of the mental health challenges which must be emerging from this question of identity. How can you live and be, or sometimes be born in a place and not belong? I think that then raises a whole set of issues about identity. And of course, we know we had the work of someone like Stuart Hall, another Jamaican, who wrote a lot about identity in Britain, in which he lived from, he was about 18 until probably the next 60 years. I am speaking about these books, some of which I read, some of these people whom I've met, because I think that what strikes me is the extent to which we have tried to, we meaning, I'm not sure who we is actually, but the efforts to erase and to create amnesia in the minds of people. What actually happened? What is actually going on so we can address it? Because we keep on pretending we don't know. We keep on pretending we don't have records. For example, I read that when the Home Office destroyed the records of the arrivals of the people, that they try to wipe out the history, and therefore people who were there have no record of arrival. No, I mean, surely this must have been government policy. These people don't make mistakes. They intended to do this. But as I said, the situation with Brexit has meant that Britain has been trying to regain its relationships with people who it had decided to throw away. But in throwing away these people, it's now finding that at this moment in history, again, that there is now being an effort to try to say, you know, in Trinidad, they have an expression, all are we are one. But it's not true. It's a lie. And therefore, I am very intrigued to see what is going to come out of this conference, both here in Jamaica, in Britain. You know, I was speaking to a colleague, I think in Canada, and they were not aware that there were all of these strikes going on in Britain about the cost of living and so on. It is as though the news is only coming in spurts. that there is an effort to try to ensure that people don't know what is going on. I think if we don't know what is going on, we can't try to resolve these problems. I mean, clearly.
I think you're quite right, Hilary. We were just, even before we started this recording, we were talking about even something as practical as knowing what's going on with COVID and why
Yes.
why people are not being advised to wear masks when there's obviously a very high incidence. So I'm also interested, and you're saying, the efforts, the amnesia, the pretending we don't know, all this trauma. I'm at the moment going through a counselling series of sessions because we had a very, very bad storm here in the national park in which I live in the hills, and 70 houses were destroyed, including ours. This was a year ago. And we are still being offered intensive counselling opportunities and trauma therapy and group sessions and you name it. Whereas when I reflect on this in terms of the hundreds of years of enslavement, and then fast forward talking about the Windruch experience, no therapy or trauma therapy or understanding seems to have been applied there. So I know you and Fred, your work was in mental health support. So I'm not negating that in any way at all, but there's not been, I don't know, can you do collective therapy? Are the ideas you've got as to how we can help people to?
Well, I think there are lessons which Germany has taught us in relation to
Right.
the Holocaust,
Mhm.
which really have to be taken on board. Some of this is very unpleasant, and it's not the kind of thing people want to own up to. But without being able to do that, we are just carrying this trauma to another generation. And the second thing I wanted to say, well, two more things. One, Liz, I want to congratulate you on this effort because it's the kind of work which may be thankless, but it's very important. And the second thing is that we really need to foster resilience, which is actually the thing that I have become more and more involved with over the years. How do we rise above some of these things? Because some of this could really wipe out generations of people, and yet it hasn't, because people are living, people are striving, people are working, people are doing what they can to deal with some of these historical problems. An important part, however, of this has to be the admission that something went wrong and also how to repair it. Um, an apology is one thing, but it's only the beginning of a process. We have here in Jamaica a fantastic person, Lord Gifford, a British peer, who, he is such a candid and honest and illuminating kind of person. And he has been involved in the reparations effort with many others in Jamaica. But there's a legal matter, there are moral matters, there are psychological matters, which we're going to have to address. And I think that these are the kinds of things that I have to say. I won't be able to stay with you for much longer because I have to take the little one down to his school. But we can continue this discussion as is required in the future because I think it's very important for us to talk with each other.
Well, I think that's fascinating, and I'm glad that I was able to introduce June Elizabeth, and it would be lovely to introduce Ina and others in more detail, but I know you're on time. Can I just say what a fascinating comment about Lord Gifford. Lord Gifford helped a friend of mine because she had legal problems about land in Jamaica, and I understand he's a fantastic person, but it never dawned on me that we could ask him if he would come and speak to us about his work.
Oh yes, yes. He is fantastic.
Do you know him well enough to invite
Yes, I
him?
do. Yes,
That
I
would be
do.
wonderful.
I will speak with him.
Wonderful. Now, what we're
Okay.
thinking of doing, just very quickly, what we're thinking of doing for the next few weeks is to continue this theme. So if he could join us in July, that would be really brilliant.
I will ask him.
ask him. But if not,
Yes.
then we'll arrange something when we set up the next season.
Okay.
So Hilary, thank you so much. You're such a wise woman, and
Thank you very much.
have
Thank
so
you
much-
so much.
Excuse me, sorry to interrupt. I've been late. And where do you reside?
I live in
Hilary?
Jamaica at the moment. Yes.
Yeah,
I live in
whereabouts?
Jamaica.
I know Jamaica
live-
very well, even though I'm born
Yes.
here.
Yes. I live in an area called Jacks Hill.
Oh, I know Jacks Hill in Kingston.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
my
Yes.
aunt lived in Stonehill. I wonder
Yes.
if you know, have you ever heard of Charlie's Pharmacy or the
No, I
medicine
haven't.
chest? And my
no.
cousin, she's a pharmacist, Dr. Dahlia McDaniel.
Yes, I know of her. I know
That's
of
my
her.
cousin. That's my cousin.
Wonderful.
She
Okay.
got married
Good.
and now she's got Dixon added on to the end of her name. She's a
Yes, I
very
know her.
activist, lovely lady. Yes. Okay.
Yes, I actually knew her because her sister is a psychiatrist who
Yeah, that's my
my husband met.
Carol. Yeah, Carol's in
Yeah.
Bristol at the moment.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, I met
She's
them.
a forensic psychiatrist
Yes. In
consultant.
fact,
Yeah.
she was part of the first class my husband taught when he came back from overseas at UWI. But we can talk about that at another time.
Lovely,
Okay?
lovely.
Lovely.
Okay.
Take care then.
Wonderful.
Then.
Yeah,
Bye.
thank you.
Ina, you'd got a quick question.
No, thank you. When Dr. Hilary comes back again, I will say that because she brought up her point of thanking you, Liz, and fostering resilience. And I believe fully in the psychological aspect of us getting somewhere. So we'll
Yeah.
talk
Yes.
about that. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you
Hilary,
so much
thank you
for your
very
Thank
much.
you all so much. Bless
Off
you
you
all.
go and do
Forward
the
to
school
seeing you
run,
again.
that's fine. Off you
Okay,
go.
Have
bye
a good
then.
day. Have a
Thank
good
you,
day.
Hilary. One
Enjoy
love.
your
Bye.
mac and
Good.
saltfish
Thank
breakfast.
you.
Yeah, one
Okay,
love.
bye.
Thank
Right,
you.
good.
I've learned in all the years that I've had Jamaican friends that you only have to put two of you together and you can work out a family link. Which is lovely. Oh, that was so delightful.
That was
I'm
lovely.
so pleased
Thank you.
Hilary was
Thank
able
you,
to join
Liz,
us.
for that.
Right.
Thank you.
Just while we're carrying on with the recording, we just want to make sure that we've heard all about June Elizabeth Whitesmith Gully's interesting week. Where you've been to. Let me get the picture up, shall you? Get the picture of the losing it.
Windruch.
Right, just a minute. Back we go. So Windrush Day. So we've had that one up there, and it was this one I wanted to show. So come on, June Elizabeth, tell us what it was like to be there. June Elizabeth, I can't hear you.
Sorry, I have some pictures, but I think I sent it to Marcia. I haven't got, you know, your phone number. Is that a WhatsApp number?
Me, I think so.
Right. So I will email
We'll
you.
work that out later, all right, and you let me have the pictures. Would you rather talk about it next week then?
Yes.
With the pictures?
What I'll
Okay.
do, I'll email you my mobile, and then if you can contact me on the WhatsApp, then I can
Yeah.
send you all the pictures.
Okay, right, that's fine, lovely. Okay then, so that'll be next week then, that's great. Now, I found something interesting here when I was lurking around on the internet.
Next week would be better.
Okay, is that
Yes.
fine then? Yeah,
That's
okay.
fine, because I tell you what, I fell down the escalator at Waterloo when I was going to the event. I managed to go to the event, and I went to the hospital yesterday, and they said my dreadlocks helped to prevent my head injury.
Thank
And
God I didn't walk in the escalator, that's all I can say. Oh dear.
say that again. What did you
I
say?
said, thank goodness I didn't get caught in the escalator.
Well,
Oh,
I was at the top and I fell backwards and rolled down. They stopped the escalator, but I did carry on my day, and I was where Prince
Absolutely
Kate.
fantastic.
Princess.
Princess Kate and her husband Prince William
Yes, yes,
And
very good.
somebody sent me a video because I did a video of it, and you can see me in the video. And also, I gave their bodyguard 2 Windrush badges to give them. So I'll tell you about my story next week. Yes, I'll tell you about it next week. Okay.
That's lovely. All right, then, thank you, Simon. We can sort things out. Right, I was just going to show you this then that I found on the internet about how the UK Parliament had an early day motion, Windrush Day 2022, and the House celebrates the 74th anniversary of the arrival of HMT Empire Windrush at Tilbury Dock on 22nd of June 1948. So it'll be interesting, maybe next year it'll be the Jamaican government that maybe will have a motion to say about when the ship's leaving. And this is the British government saying to recognise that Windrush has become a key symbolic moment in the history of both the Black British contribution to Britain and the broader post-war Commonwealth migration that reshaped the modern British society of today. That's our first point, key symbolic moment. Acknowledges that this is not just Black history, but it's British history. Another good point. Remember, this is an early day motion. This is when I think there were 36 or something people tabled it in the Houses of Parliament. So the next point was the celebrations, taking place across the country that recognise the immense impact that the Windrush generation has had on UK society and culture since 1948. Recognises also that it's ashamed by the Windrush scandal, and this carries on. It condemns the suffering that has been caused to members of the Windrush generation and their descendants, some of whom have been wrongfully deported, lost their homes, livelihood, and been denied access to healthcare and public services. I found reading this being put in this way was significant somehow. Yes, we know this, but we have to keep saying it. Then it adds, the next thing is that it's outraged by the delays in the Windrush compensation scheme, which has sadly led to 23 people passing away before receiving compensation. It also notes the conclusion of a leaked Home Office report that suggests that the origins of the Windrush scandal lay in 30 years of racist immigration legislation designed to reduce UK's non-white population. And I think when you think about that, remember that South Africa was a British colony, wasn't it? And you think about the issues there on racism, and you think about the United States, America, which started up as a British colony. Then calls on the Home Office to release this report in full. That's a very important point. And notes that next year will mark the 75th anniversary of Windrush, and that's again important to recognise. We talked about it before, and calls on this government to mark the day with nationwide celebrations befitting of a day with such national importance. So I thought that was interesting. I wanted to share with you, and just to say that there's, if you look it up on the internet here, there's the you look it up on this thing, which I can put in the chat for you if you want.
Please.
I'll just do that. I can't. Wait a minute. Just a minute. I think I'll be able to. No, that's even worse. Sorry. I'll just have to do that in a moment for you. But there's this huge. It identifies everybody who signed this early day motion. So it's really interesting because this is just a small section of it. There's this is the first 9, and then there's a whole lot of others included as well. So I thought that was interesting to share. So I'll share that link with you in a moment. But just to say that as well, in the next few weeks we'll be continuing the Windrush theme. So I'm asking for ideas and suggestions, please. Really interesting if we could get Lord Gifford to speak with us. That would be a good one. But this delightful gentleman is John Mcenough, he was the student on the Jamaican language course that we ran at City College Birmingham. We went up to like an A-level standard, and John was successful. The alphabet in Jamaican is produced by the University of the West Indies Jamaica Language Unit. And we had Joseph Farquharson, who leads that. He was on one of our shows quite a long time ago. Yeah, it would be really nice to get John to come. And he invented the Jamaican alphabet song. He's a musician. That's why he wanted to make sure that he could write Jamaican properly. And that was really interesting. So I've asked him if he'll come, but I'm not sure. I haven't heard back yet. So just while I'm talking with you, and we've got Bunmi here as well, as you can see, one of my real interests, apart from wider Black history, is the links with the Caribbean. And when we were talking there with Hilary and I have been talking and wondering what we can do. And what I was wondering is whether we could create a group of us with an interest in this. And Bunmi, we're not excluding you. You can be included as well, and Alice, and obviously you as well. But it would be good to get a group of people with a particular interest in this link with Jamaica, so that we could maybe not do, because sometimes it is difficult to get the pictures right on Zoom, but just to maybe do some discussions, podcast discussions, and get Jamaican colleagues to talk with us, because we've got an opportunity to perhaps help people to seek a better understanding, so that they can address some of the challenges. And Hilary would be willing to work with us. I don't know what you thought.
Very happy to be a part of that. There's nothing I like more than learning about areas where I haven't had much opportunity to study, and it is a universal issue. It's a global issue, and only global solutions, can actually work. I believe so strongly in a Pan-African approach, to dealing with all the small what we consider as small pockets of issues in each country. You just raised a very fundamental question, or something that led to a fundamental question in my mind. The US, Canada, Australia were all British colonies, and they have been allowed to thrive. Not so for any of the former colonies in Africa or the Caribbean. So the solution has to be a global one. I'd really be very happy to be a part of that.
I think that's really interesting, and I'm very aware, being here in Australia and looking at the world from the other way around and the other side, and having had these wonderful opportunities over the last months, years now, to learn more. And so, Bunmi, it would be really interesting to think what we can do. If it's okay with you all, I'm just going to switch off the recording at the moment, and can we carry on talking? So it's been a great session, and thanks for you all taking part. So I'm just going to turn off the recording, but don't go away. Okay. So
Thank you.
Away. Stop recording. There we are. Right. Stop recording. There we are. Right. Okay then.
Thank you. Where is Simon?
Still says recording. Simon has to go and collect his daughter, so he gives.
No, where in the world is he? I get Canada.
Sorry. Let me just this recording thing's still messing about.
Oh, sorry.
Right. I don't know. It still says it's recording, and I can't switch it off. Anyway, it doesn't matter, because Simon cuts out the end of it all anyway. So record on the cloud, and stop recording, stop the cloud recording, stop recording. Sorry, I'm reading it out loud. It's very late here, and still the recording things are, never mind anyway. So what I'm wondering is that I'd like to keep the Black History conversations going, but going in the way that they, we invite in authors, we invite in academics from all different sorts of things, and we keep that going. But I do think that I'd like to, my background's education. The answer to your question, Ina, is that Simon's in Nottingham. Simon's worked for a refugee and asylum seeker organisation called Belong, and part of his efforts were, in the early days, was so we took part in a project they were doing, and that helped us get this started and how to manage the IT and everything else behind it. So that's his role. So whether because Bunmi, you're doing your Pan-African series. Do you want me to share with people what you're doing?
Please, yeah. Yes,
have to look it up and then I can share the screen. So
yeah,
it's,
and one of the reasons, another reason why, something that you will see reflects my Pan-African approach is this manuscript that I've asked you to read for me, this novel that I've just finished. What I have done is to take, 5 characters from different parts of the African diaspora, 5 young characters, and show the way in which slavery, colonialism, has at different points in their life erupted into some kind of violence, which now colors the adults they become. And those 5 characters for me, they're just metaphorical figures, indicating the kind of what Hilary described just now as a post-traumatic traumas. They are there, the evidence are there, and they continue to impact development. And it just baffles me how a lot of activists, well, academics too, don't make these links, Yeah, please, I'd be happy for you to share my work. And I definitely love, one of my characters actually is from Jamaica in that novel. She's a young girl who was sent to Jamaica by her mother from foreign, like the Jamaicans say, from Canada. And then the grandmother dies and she has to be brought back to Canada, and she just narrowly escapes being sexually abused by her mother's boyfriend. So those are the kind of characters I'm working with. Pan-African, my approach to everything I do is Pan-African.
Right, very interesting. So I'm just going to share the screen and show people the work that you're doing. I never ever get, I don't know how to work out how to get reminders. I've subscribed and everything else, and then I forget to look things up. But this is the right site, is it, Bunmi?
Yes.
Yes, I've got the right site. Good.
Yes.
So what you do is you post things up very frequently. I mean, we've got some things here that you've recorded. Well, here's one from a month ago. Who are Afro Indians, and what are the Black people in India? You probably can't see this if I move it though, so I'll have to go back. What are the Black people in India called? Right, I'm just going back to Daisy. All right, I'm starting again.
To skip the ads.
Could you see the ads come up then?
It came up. You just needed to skip it.
I'm sorry, I thought it wouldn't come up because
it does. Yeah.
So we skip the ads.
Yeah.
One a month ago. Oops, Daisy. Oh, no, I don't think the ads are going to come up.
Very few of us are aware that people of African origin have been living in India for centuries. There are a number of documentaries out there by the BBC, Al Jazeera, and others which have tried to draw attention to the current plight of these remarkable African diasporas. Unfortunately, most of these accounts only mention that they had arrived in what we now know as India as slaves. They also dwell on their present deplorable situation without proper reference to their glorious past and their role in the emergence of present-day India and even Pakistan. Welcome to the Sankofa Pan-African series. Please don't forget to subscribe and turn on your notification buttons if you haven't done so. And also continue to support us through Patreon or by buying me coffee. So first, who are the Afro Indians as they are now collectively known, who can be found in India and Pakistan?
Right, I'm going to have to stop sharing that, otherwise Bunmi will be interested in watching the whole way through. So Bunmi's got an amazing catalogue now of programs that you've recorded. I gather your husband's really into to knowing about the technicalities of it all. Very handy. I enjoyed this one. How did Europe twist African history? That was a good one. That's been on for a long time. And what you were doing yesterday, one day ago, is this right? You did the What's Wrong with Nigeria one?
Yes. It's actually, I did it a while back. I just reposted it because I find a lot of the issues raised there are topical right now in Nigeria as we approach elections.
You can see that Bunmi does them with the same start, and she's very professional. And yeah, 2 days ago, what was that? It was
the most recent one is the New Scramble for Africa, which was posted premiered on Sunday.
So Square built tools that can bring together every part of what you've built.
Right, okay, video will play now. Okay.
You're not sharing your screen with us.
Oh, sorry. Brilliant. Good on you, Bunmi. Right, thank you. And can you see it now?
Yes. Why has the country, which is now known as the Democratic Republic of Congo, never known peace? Welcome to the Sankofa Pan-African series. Please support us through Patreon and by buying me coffee so we can continue to bring you this series. Subscribe if you've not yet done so, and please turn on your notification buttons so you know when we have new episodes. And of course, share our videos with all your contacts. So today we'll be looking at the history of the Kingdom of Congo, because I believe that history should be a tool for helping us to understand how we got to be where we are, and that knowledge should help us chart a path for the future. Now, the history of the Kingdom of Congo is closely intertwined with the history of humans in the Congo Basin, which is in turn defined by their relationship with the forest and savanna woodlands.
Bunmi, I'm going to stop again there because I just wanted to give people an idea what the programs are about.
Thank you.
So I think maybe we'll talk some more and see what we can do. But June Elizabeth, how do you think we could maybe do some like put together a training program? You know, like, and we're not a chat like we do, but have a training program and then have those online available for people. I can't hear you, June Elizabeth.
I think it's viable, and I think it would be very, very a worthwhile project with a very scholastic outcome.
Yeah.
Yes, I think it'd be brilliant, because I say I belong on a lot of platforms and I love this one the best.
Well, thank you. I do think it's important we keep this one going because,
yes,
you know, different people come along to each one, and depends what time of the year it is, whether people want to come, what time of day it ends up. But, you know, we've really got some interesting people, and I'd like, you know, ideas from others as to who else can join us. That's really good.
Yes, it was very, sorry, it's very interesting. It's interesting that, you know, Dr. Hilary, when she mentioned that she knew my cousin, she's a pharmacist, she's an activist, she's a counsellor, very clever lady. And she said she really knows her through her sister, Dr. Carol McDaniel, and she now at the moment is the head of psychiatry in the Avon district of West England. And they had asked me last Black History to write something for their Black History blog. So that's why I'd written about the Windrush generation for them. But why I mentioned it is that it's a small world, because my cousin Carol, she came and she was living in Birmingham, Sutton Coldfield. She's still got a house there. But then she relocated to Canada. And then she's relocated back to Britain to you got to top up your exams. And then they've offered her this job. So now she rents her house out in Canada and the one in Sutton Coldfield, and she's in Bristol at the moment. So the connection on this platform is very what do you say?
Amazing.
Amazing, yes.
Yeah,
yes, I'll leave it like that, you know.
Okay.
Every week you get a connection, like that gentleman Selassie that asked me if I knew Trev Hall, and that's who I grew up with. You know what I mean? Small world. And what I like is that when I first got introduced to this platform, I think it was, I don't know if it was Sean from, you know, Sean in London, right? And I kept saying to myself, I need to invite Ina.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that she has come on the platform.
Sorry about that. Sorry about that.
Excellent, because you've both got really good ideas. So we're talking about whether we could put together a training package, I know, that, you know, record some training sessions, you know, of a series of things. I mean, this is the sort of thing that universities ought to do, but we're doing it anyway. So Alison, have you got any ideas about training for people using Zoom as a training tool? Switch your mic on, please. Switch your mic on. I can't hear you, Alison. Alison, I can't hear you.
There we are. I was just thinking about how successful June Elizabeth had been with Windrush, supporting Windrush claimants, because there was an article in The Guardian just a couple of days ago with the title, Windrush, only 1 in 4 applicants have received compensation. A Home Office spokesperson said of the 3,878 claims lodged, 50% had received final decisions, of whom 50% had been offered compensation. So that's all running behind. So you've done really well with the people you've supported, haven't you? It's a problematic application system, isn't it? Isn't
yes,
it right?
it's very hard. I say to the managers and the head of Home Office, look how many emails, how many meetings I have had to endure to support my clients. I work, and in the end, the head of Home Office says I mustn't write to anybody apart from him, unless I said to him, well, I've made so much engagement with certain different departments. He said, well, if you've already engaged, because I said, I'll overload your plate. He said, well, if you've already engaged, just CC me in. That is another story. One day I will tell you about working as a bridge through the Home Office. And there's no way an average person can get, not that I'm saying I'm over average, can get through without any support. I mean, I know myself, we were on a platform last night with the Jamaica High Commission, and it was about compensation, and they brought on a couple of lawyers, and etc. And the platform can only hold 100 people, and a lot of people couldn't get on. And it was so sad to hear all the stories. And what I found very distressing, which I shall take back, is that this lawyer, she said that she's written to the Home Office for her client and they didn't even respond. And I thought that it says it all. But when I write to the Home Office, right, they respond to me. And the Home Office manager, last week, he wrote to somebody and he CC'd me in, and he said, well, actually, I was just going to reply to June Elizabeth because I was supposed to be in Manchester today, but we've postponed it because of the train. And he said, I was just replying to June Elizabeth because I'm the advisor. I'd asked him to let us know who was coming, what's their positions and their dietary needs, so that we could have the right people to have a good debate. And he wrote to the lawyer and said to him, oh, June Elizabeth's been very patient because I was just going to reply to her. And then he wrote to me personally and said, thanked me for my patience. But I am transparent. I work pro bono and I'm an extrovert to detail. So therefore, when I found out that the caseworkers were telling porcupines and I attached it and they decided to ignore me, and that's why the head of Home Office had to come in, and she apologized and sorted out what she could sort out. I accepted their apology, and then they said, in future, I mustn't write to the caseworkers. So that's how come I've got a hotline then, and I don't abuse it. But if I need to send something and I'm not sure where, I send it straight to the head of Home Office and they send it. So I find that now, because I know most of the offices and the people who run the department. So most people, they have to post things in, or if they email, it goes into a box. So nobody claims collective responsibility. But I show them I have to have a named person so I can follow up. So I always have the managers, and that's how I work. And I'm very polite. I'm very polite with them, because if you're trying to help people, even if the Home Office staff they've not been correct, I do it in a manner that, because you know, when you're dealing with people's lives, you can't afford to upset somebody, even if they tread on my toe. You know, I will always be gracious, so that they all find it a joy to work with me. I'm not being big-headed, but I'm just telling you how it is.
I tell you. I think I could learn off you, June Elizabeth, a lot. June Elizabeth, by the way, just before I ask you, do you happen to know Hilary Brown in South Wales? She is a solicitor who takes a lot of cases through. She's Jamaican heritage.
Yeah, she was one of the ladies on, I believe, on the platform last night. Did you see her, Ina?
What's the name?
Hilary Brown. Do you remember that she was one of the lawyers last night?
Yes, she was.
I don't know her. I saw her on the platform. Yes. Small world, isn't it?
It is.
Well,
It is.
Ina, you'd got a point you wanted to make.
I was just going to say, it's has it arrived? Is it a time like this that we should be collectively approaching the government about which means going to the court about the Windruch scandal? Because they seem to be dealing with individuals rather than dealing collectively, and this is affecting a lot more people than we're told.
I
think it's
really
imaginable.
don't know. is there a is there a campaign group for the Windrush victims?
Is there?
What I found, there are lots of different groups, and what I am doing, and I've told the Home Office, I am working with all the different groups in England, right? But I'm being a scrutiny, yes. And you know, I'm not looking a job. I'm not looking for a friend. I'm looking for justice. So it's people who are pretending that they are Windrush advocates or Windrush representatives, and they are not really performing, right? I will not challenge them, but I'll work with them to show them, you know, a better way of working. But I do it in a way that they're writing to me to ask for advice. So, you know, they were having something in I think it was Sheffield. And when I asked them, you know, have you done the risk assessment? They didn't know what I was on about. There's lots of things that they were talking. And I said, oh, that's up to that organisation. I said, but you're hiring a place for public, and that place would not have any of their staff there. It's a weekend, and you're going from 7 o'clock to 4 in the morning. And I kind of sent them a template of event management, yeah, because what I find a good thing, like what we're doing here, you've got the Windrush National Organisation, which is, as it says, I'm a part of that from Northampton, but I found in the Windrush National Organisation that a lot of people, they work, well, I'll come back to you with that, because I've written to the president and I've said to him, I thought a year on, I would really know what everybody's doing. Yeah. So you see, I find, and I'm going to say this, are we still on tape?
It's recording.
It says
Yes.
it's recording, but I
Yes.
can't switch it
Yeah.
off.
Okay. What I'll do.
When you come in next week, come in before we start, and then we can
Yes,
talk.
I'll reschedule my diary. Yeah, it's just that this week I had some. Yeah, and I'll talk certain things, but I find that certain organisations, right, with they don't adhere to certain principles. Yeah, and when you work in all organisations, and if you're working for anyone, especially the Windrush generation, you've got to be transparent. And that word says it all. You've got to be transparent. And if I am working with any organisation or I'm affiliated and I find that there's any dodgy business, right? I haven't got anybody that I would call out, but I've just always say this to an organisation: if I'm going to join you, as long as everything is as it's supposed to be. But when I find it not to be, because years ago I was in many organisations, I will remove myself. I can't afford to get my name dirty. You know, I work too hard for my names, and if I get my names dirty, I won't be able to help anybody else. So I just put that in because you asked about the groups. So
yeah, I just wondered if there was, you know, I just didn't know what the different groups were.
Yeah, there's quite a lot, and I can send you a list of them. And Patrick Vernon, he's the head of the campaign.
Right, so maybe we can ask Patrick. Do you know Patrick Vernon well enough to ask him if he would like to come on this chat?
Well, I can get a message to him because I sent him a message in the chat yesterday, and he said I've got to update him on my work, what I'm doing. So with this new resident, because a lot of people say, well, a lot of African people say that it's like people think it's just for the Caribbean, but it's not. It's for Italians. It's for people who meet the criteria. And this lady that I've just got a returning resident for, she's a Nigerian.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's
Well,
lovely.
this is
Ina.
this is why I'm saying collectively, could there be a group collectively in challenging the government? Because what I heard is that someone gets £500, the same person can get £5,000. It seems on a whim, we'll give you that to keep you quiet. That money is that. It's not about money. It's the whole thing of the government or the, in dealing with a generation or with the offsprings of a group of people. And as you said, it's not just Jamaicans. It's a group of Commonwealth, ex-Commonwealth or whatever people. So collectively, could we be looking at going to the European Court of Justice, your Supreme Court, those people who have got the legal knowledge, the ability to take it through?
Well, maybe we could ask Hilary Brown.
Yeah.
I'll ask her. She may or may not be able to join us on a Friday afternoon because she's working, obviously, but I'm going to ask her. Okay.
Is Lord Clifford a lawyer? Clifford.
Lord Clifford is a lawyer in Jamaica, yes.
Yeah.
I wonder if he could help us.
There's Patrick.
At the moment, we've got Lord Gifford, Patrick Vernon, and Hilary Brown as people who we might follow this up with. So that's a really interesting direction.
Jamaican lawyer by the name of Patrick Robinson, who was at the International Court of Justice.
Patrick Robinson, do you know him?
No, he was talking about, for many years ago, talking about the enslavement and the what is owing in reparation.
Right, okay. Well, follow any of these things up, and you can either drop me an email or chat to me when we're on again. Just to say, I just found this that was put in the chat, I think by Simon. Joy.
No, Margaret put it in the Joy's the Green's book.
Yeah, and also then it says underneath that there's a short YouTube thing, post-traumatic slave syndrome, how is it different from whatever else it says. But then she actually gives a talk for 1 hour and 20 minutes on post-traumatic slave disorder on YouTube. That's been there since 2016. And then there's a more up-to-date thing, but that's only 2 minutes. So this is what I do. I just throw through different things, and you often find if you go onto Amazon, I'm sure you all know this, but if you go onto Amazon, you can usually read quite a bit of the book to get a bit of a feel of it and things. Okay then, so thanks ever so much everybody. I hope we can successfully follow up some of the things we've talked about, and look forward to catching up with you again. I think I've got another chat here to say from Bunmi. All right, she needs to go. Okay, that's great. All right then.
Hi, Alison. Nice seeing you again.
Okay, thank you.
Nice seeing you, Liz. Bye.
Thank you. See you good as well.
And
Bye.
June Elizabeth, you just look after yourself and don't fling yourself down
Down
any more
escalators. Yes.
A duppy push me.
A duppy pushed me.
No. The duppy prevented you from harming yourself.
My ancestors were looking after me, and those people up there in heaven, if that's where I might end up, they were saying, "Oh no, we don't want her up here yet."
Yeah, not now, not now.
It was too much.
Not now. She's not. We're not ready for her yet.
Okay, bye all.
Bye,
Have a good
everybody.
day. Bye.
Okay, one love. Take care.
Bye.
Yeah, bye,
Bye.
love.
God
Bye.
bless.
And remember